Welcome to Burnout-Free Me, your success and well-being podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am so glad you're here. Let's go from burnout to breakthrough together. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first guest episode of the newly rebranded Burnout-Free Me, the podcast that helps high achievers and ambitious professionals take back their time, energy, and joy. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am thrilled to introduce you to my guest today, Crystal Stokes. Today, we're having a conversation that so many of us in high stress, high impact careers need to hear. We're talking about burnout and how to start healing so you can reconnect with your purpose, build resilience, and lead with heart. You're going to learn what it means to lead yourself and your team from a grounded, values-driven place, and how to rediscover the meaning and the balance that may have started to feel out of reach. Now, my guest, Crystal Stokes, is the founder and managing director of Full Circle Lab. With a background in veterinary medicine, psychotherapy, leadership development and coaching, and business operations, she leads with a blend of emotional intelligence, strategy, and heart. Her work is deeply rooted in evidence-based practices and high-performance coaching, and she's passionate about helping veterinary professionals rediscover purpose, build resilience, and lead from this grounded, values-driven perspective. Crystal, she has walked in many shoes. She started out as a veterinary technician in general practice and then moved into overnight emergency. Then she became a licensed therapist and now a director of operations, certified professional coach, and a leadership consultant. Crystal really understands the unique challenges of veterinary medicine and high-stress careers, not just clinically, but emotionally and culturally. That's what drives her to build stronger, healthier teams. She's also a fellow podcaster. She's the host of the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership podcast, where she dives into the heart of veterinary culture, burnout, and what it really means to thrive in this field. I am so excited to have her as my guest today. So, Crystal Stokes, welcome to Burnout-Free Me.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're here today. And I'm also so excited that you're the first guest interview on the newly rebranded podcast, because I think this topic and this conversation is just going to be so on point.
Well, I'm
So,
honored to be your first guest. This is going to be fun.
yes. Yeah, so as you already know, many of my listeners, they are veterinarians who love their work, and they also feel kind of drained by it. And many of these lovely listeners are non-veterinarians too, who are these ambitious, driven women, and they want to succeed in their careers. And yeah, everybody's feeling drained and they want to find a better way. And I know in conversations we've had before, you have a super interesting journey with this. So I would love it if you could share with everybody today how you got to where you are and what inspired your shift from working in vet med to supporting the people within it.
Sure. I love that. And Amy, I appreciate you framing the conversation that way, because I know when I come onto a podcast, I'm looking for solutions for myself, like I'm in it because I need to learn or to grow. And I've often found that when we can listen to others who've like walked in similar paths and we get ideas, we get inspired, we see, maybe there's something I can take away from that story. So I'm hoping in sharing some of that story, maybe like a younger version of me could avoid some of the missteps that I went through.
Yes.
So they all led me here. So maybe it was meant to be. But sure, I'll go back in time, and I'll preface this by saying I named my company selfishly kind of after my experience. My company is called Full Circle Lab, and I believe that I experienced what I would say is a full circle story. And I believe that many of us in veterinary medicine are here to have our own version of a full circle story, meaning I was that kid that came in to veterinary medicine full at the top of that circle with love and passion and ambition and all the energy and all the drive. Like I was on fire for veterinary medicine since I was a little tiny kid. It's all I wanted to be. I had all my eggs in one basket. And I found myself at NC State University with, I really wanted to go to their vet school. I was very focused from an early age on NC State. And I was there for undergrad. And I was like many veterinary professionals, burning that candle at both ends. Even as an undergrad, I did not have any kind of family or financial support, and I really was trying to get through school with as little student debt as I could, while also getting as much experience as I could. So working multiple jobs, taking like very high credit loads, just trying to do it fast. And I didn't have any like sense of value over self-care. That was just not even on my radar at all. Like I'll sleep when I'm dead was kind of my attitude.
So
So
true.
I started off in GP, like we all do, cutting my teeth in the kennels and working my way up. In my third year in veterinary medicine as a technician, I shifted over to overnight ER. And I thought, this is genius because I'm going to work way more hours. I'm going to get so much more experience, critical cases, anesthesia, all that. Didn't really factor in sleep because I was going to school during the day, but wasn't worried about it.
Yeah,
And
who needs sleep, right?
you need sleep, especially when you're like 20 years old. Nobody cares, right? And it was going okay. I'd say for about a year, like I was keeping my head above water. But something deep inside of me was starting to really fall apart. And again, I had no language for this. I came from a family that we didn't talk about emotions, right? Those are things you just shove away to get the job done. I was very much responsible and duty bound. I'm here to do my job, do my duty. How I feel about it is kind of irrelevant. But what was happening over the course of that year when I was losing, I think, my ability to function from not sleeping, I was not really handling economic euthanasia well. It was starting to emotionally really impact me. Looking back on it, I now know that was called compassion fatigue, but I didn't know that back then. All I knew was that, in ER, we euthanize a lot of pets from, that can't afford the care. They definitely are salvageable, like it's a broken leg or something like that. The pet parent can't afford it, and we euthanize. And in the group that I worked with, we just moved on. It was like the military or like a machine. You just do your job, you move on, you bag the body, you put in the freezer, you go. And we didn't talk about how we felt about it. It was just a part of how things worked. And in my mind, I could hear this inner critic or something talking to me saying, if you don't have what it takes to do this, you don't belong in veterinary medicine. You're done. And I remember my last night very vividly. It was just one more cat, and I just loved the cat. And I couldn't believe that we were going to euthanize this cat. And everything inside of me said, you should do something different this time. Like we can stop this, or you can't do it. And of course I didn't do anything. Just like every other night, I let it happen. And I quit that night. Like something in me just shattered. And I had this real sense of like a deeper breaking inside of me, and completely disoriented after that. Because again, all the eggs were in one basket. I was getting close to graduating. It's like I don't have any backup plan. So the long and short of it, like to condense the next part down, because this was multiple years, I had a quarter life crisis. There was nothing else I wanted to do. And I used all of my like hard driver options, like, how we are. We go hard. We try to like push through the burnout, push through the compassion fatigue, whatever. And nothing really worked. So with my tail between my legs, I eventually went to therapy. And I'm cringing because that was my face when I went to therapy. I was like, I don't believe in therapy. I come from a family that's like, we don't do that. And I went to therapy very suspicious. Like, this is probably a waste of my time and money, but whatever, I'm desperate. So what happened in therapy was actually quite magical. I always say it was like you took Pinocchio, the wooden object, to becoming a real boy, like a flesh and blood human. It brought me back to my childhood, to what it felt like to be alive, to having a heart again, to having emotions, to wanting to be in nature, to like, why did I even want to be a veterinarian? Like, what do I care about on this planet? Why am I here? And I think I connected with the realization that My real purpose is just to help things thrive. It didn't have to be an animal. I like to help
Hmm.
plants thrive, people thrive. I want to contribute to thriving in general, to reduce suffering and pain, and to increase thriving and having some kind of life purpose before you kick the bucket. So that led me to say to my therapist, Deborah, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "I want to be a therapist." So that was a big pivot for me. And the rest of it kind of happened quickly. So I became a therapist, loved being a therapist, definitely was the type of training I needed to round out my hard sciences with this other type of deeper knowing. Like, how do people truly change? Like, how does that really work? We know as leaders, like I'm sure the many veterinarians listening right now and technicians and other professionals, we've all tried to help people change, but they don't. What is it about therapy that really unlocks that? That was the magic I had to know. I was so interested healing from complications that hold us back, all of that. So
Hmm.
becoming a therapist was definitely what I needed to be a more well-rounded human to help people thrive. But what I found is that it just wasn't enough for me. And I wonder if people listening in vet med might feel that way too. Like maybe being a clinician is not enough for you. Maybe your heart longs
Hmm.
for more. So I knew that I longed for I love operations within businesses. I like businesses. I like teams. I like groups. Working as a solo therapist was super boring to me. So I started dabbling more with a hybrid of coaching and therapy where I go into organizations and provide leadership development coaching. And I got some special certifications to further enhance my credentials to do that. And I was loving that. I'm like, ooh, I love working with teams and leaders and having a ripple effect through the organization. But vet med haunted me. And I started having crazy thoughts like, are you too old to be in vet school when you're 40? Like, can I still do it? Is there a way to be back in veterinary medicine? It just never leaves me. I want to be back in it. So what I did, this was probably like 8 or 9 years ago now, I emailed a local hospital here in Santa Barbara. And I just said, hey, are you looking for a volunteer tech? I could give you 5 hours or less a week. And they emailed me back and they said, why don't you come in and we'll meet you? So I go to this hospital and the owner takes me up into her office and she said, Crystal, that was such a weird email. She said, nobody wants to be a volunteer tech. Like, that's not a thing. And she said, so I looked you up on LinkedIn. Granted, now I have not been a tech for like almost 20 years at this point. I haven't touched a needle or anything. She said, I looked you up on LinkedIn and she said, I saw that you're a therapist. I said, yeah, that's right. And she said, did you know that we just had a doctor die of suicide here? And boy, I had like chills in my body at that moment because I had no idea. Like, oh my gosh, definitely would not have sent that email if I had known. And she said, we've been thinking about hiring a full-time veterinary social worker for years, and we're ready to do it. And so I was actually bringing you here today to see if you might want a full-time job. And I was so caught off guard. I was speechless. I didn't even know what a veterinary social worker was, honestly. Like, what is this thing you're talking about? So we opened up that conversation. I wasn't looking for a full-time job. I was fully employed in my own company doing leadership development coaching. But I said we could start off with 5 hours a week and I can explore what's happening at your clinic that, the culture was in a really, really dark place. So let's just start there. That was my first client. And from there, everything happened very quickly. As soon as I turned my light back towards vet med, I saw there was so much need. And I got very busy very fast. And I ended up opening Full Circle Lab. That was my full circle story of coming back to the top of the circle, back to this passion and hope for veterinary medicine. And I brought on a group of coaches. So my team is a coaching team that has a mixture of veterinary social workers and veterinarians like yourself who are coaches. And everything we provide is coaching or consultation. We do not provide any type of therapy. And we come into hospitals and help support them, just like that one, on their culture, supporting their leadership development, supporting their well-being. And it's really all of us kind of in the same boat. We've all experienced some dark night, and we all are here to try to get through it together and get back to the sunny side of the top of that circle.
Ah, that's such a beautiful story. And there's so many pieces of it that I think other people can resonate with. And even I find myself resonating with so much of it. Like just the idea that, maybe it's okay to want something more and you don't have to stay as a clinician for your entire career. You can switch, you can do something outside of vet med, you can come back to vet med. And that whole idea of what you had talked about, like trying to outwork the burnout at first, I was like, oh yeah, same. Like,
No,
I
like it
think
won't
there's so
catch you
many of
fast
us.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, I don't need sleep. I just need to study more and I need more hours in the day. And that's the problem. It's
Exactly.
not my
Yeah.
well-being. Yeah, and there's just so many little pieces there. And also, I love how you did go completely full circle and you're now back in veterinary medicine, which, yeah, is really important and close for both of us.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious now, like shifting gears a little bit because I work a lot in the coaching world now, and a lot of traditional coaching, it really relies on this idea of self-responsibility, right? Like, how can I show up as my best self, set boundaries, protect myself from burnout? And you and I both know that, like, this is crucial because a lot of times we have way more power than we think we do, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for that. And at the same time, as people who are working in veterinary medicine, there is this like almost like responsibility for professional support. And at least I think there should be. The systems that we work in should support us and help us flourish and, help us maintain or even improve our well-being. And that's one of the things that I love most about your journey is not only did you go into therapy and that sort of personal side of things, but then you came back and you also did leadership development and performance and things like that. And I'm curious now with your big picture perspective, what does that actually look like on a systems level? The leadership, the performance, the well-being. How can leaders, business owners, practice owners actually create these kinds of cultures that help prevent burnout rather than just reacting to it, when it finally happens to me?
Such a well-framed question. I love good questions. As coaches, you know the importance of questions. Like they're so important. So thank you for teeing that one up because I have so much to say. But I'm going to
Good.
keep it compact for those listening. Because here's one thing that in becoming a therapist, I value so much. In the journey of becoming a therapist, I was in a 3-year program. The first 2 years, I resisted. I dug my heels in. I said, this is bullshit. I don't want to do the touchy-feely stuff. Just teach me the science. I just want to understand how to do the assessments. I want to understand how to deliver the therapy. I don't need to feel anything. Leave me alone. And then they said, well, Crystal, you're not going to graduate unless you do it. You have to feel the feelings, blah, blah, blah. So by the 3rd year, they broke the horse and they all tease me about it to this day. I have professors that still laugh about it. They're like, you just wouldn't let go. In that 3rd year, I dropped down into the other stuff. This is where I think it's so critical in order to be a therapist and have longevity in your career. I specialized in trauma. I loved working with military people, military personnel, and first responders. So I delivered a type of therapy where I would essentially sit for 90 minutes recounting very, very traumatic events and working with my very special clients on how to, live life again, despite what they had been through. And sometimes I would do 8 hours of that in a day. What's my self-care process so that I don't lose my mind by doing this work day after day? So they build this into your curriculum and teach you how to care for yourself. There are things like after every session, I take a 10-minute window, type my notes really fast. I didn't have notes at the end of the day. And then I go outside for a minute, just get some sun, take a deep breath, go back in, cleanse that off me. At the end of the day, I go straight down to the beach and power walk by the ocean and just let go of the stories that I had been holding on to that day. Within the circles of therapy, we have consultation groups where we all get together with other clinicians and we talk through our cases and our own struggles. Like, man, this story about this client was super personal, like to me, and I'm like trying to work on my transference and counter transference with this client, or how do I make sure we're moving this person forward? All of that. We support each other, and they also have us build out our own self-care. Like, what do you need? Who are your people that support you? How do you take care of yourself? What are your boundaries around time and limitations to make sure you can be an effective therapist? We should be doing the same thing for all providers. We are here as caregivers. We give of ourselves to take care of pets, to take care of clients, pet parents, to take care of our team. We have a lot of energy going out. So we need to engineer our systems to think about that, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like feeding an organism. If the organism moves around more, it needs more food. If it moves around less, it needs less. We give a lot out. What are the inputs that come back? So as we know from like the Nagoski sisters book on burnout, so they did some wonderful research on burnout. One of their key findings was that burnout is not solved by an individual dragging themselves up by the bootstrap and self-carrying themselves out of burnout, because that's not what created the burnout. If we look
Mm-hmm.
at what truly impacts burnout levels, it is a community involved change. We need people around us all collectively together supporting one another to make the changes that we all need. If one person's burned out, I guarantee you many other people are. There's no just one burned out person on your team. So the nutshell version of that is, as responsible leaders, first, you've got to learn your own practice. You have to be intentional about saying, I admit where my limitations are, and what is your purpose for being in a leadership position? You've got to be clear on that. Are you upholding your purpose every day or most of the days? You need to have the right level of like inputs going back to you to uphold that purpose. Like for me, if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I'm not getting enough downtime, if I'm not getting enough adventure, I become a crappy leader. I become snappy. Things fall through the
Mm-hmm.
cracks. I get disorganized. It sucks. That's on me. That's my responsibility. But I need to know what to ask for from the world around me. And then as a leader, once you have that idea of what you need, you should also be engineering that for other people. Theirs may not be just like yours, but it really, I just think, just needs to be baked into the system like it is for therapists. For therapists, we have consultation groups, we have our breaks. It's like built into the model because they don't want therapists to burn out. Well, if we don't want our vets and our techs and our leadership team to not burn out, just build it into the dang model from the start. It's not a nice to have, it's a have to have.
Yeah, that is so true. And I just think about like the types of mindsets that we bring into vet med. So many of us have to be competitive from the very start to even get into vet school. And then it's like scholarships and residencies and all of this. And we sort of bake into our own DNA this idea that we have to do it alone, we should be able to do it alone, or handle it all, or figure it out. And yes, while it's great to be resourceful, there is also a very big community component to that. And I'm so glad you brought that up.
I know it's so true, and I do think that's also the case. I think with those of us in human medicine too, that the competitive nature of it, and also the United States has that kind of attitude, the individualistic, independent nature, but it's a fallacy. And I think that if we looked at it like, if we could pull together more and look at how we're sharing the load, like just think about when you're a doctor on the floor. It's great when you have other doctors to bounce ideas around off of. Some people are way better at, say, like the client facing side. They can just smooth things over with those dramatic clients. Other people are just so great with like lab work and the nitty gritty, like kind of more nerdy things. Some people are very good hands on, like they feel those things and they're just pull together and leverage those strengths. You don't need to be a jack of all trades, master of none. And it
Hmm.
just feels better. We know that human beings are wired to be socially connected. When you look at longevity studies like the blue zones and people that live to be 100 and have a great health span, what do they all have in common? It's that sense of connection and relationships, right? Like being a hard driver and climbing to the top of that ladder and getting the A plus plus has nothing to do with whether or not you're going to live a healthy, long, purposeful life. You might be pretty miserable up there at the top. That would be really
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah, and I think especially for people with perfectionist tendencies where they're like, but I have to be good at everything, otherwise, like, it's not perfect. And it's like, oh man, there's something to be said about how much effort it takes to unlearn and really to be willing to actually do that and not be right and be a beginner again.
Yes, it's true. It's humbling. And it's hard, I think, when you're in the veterinary profession, a lot rides on your shoulders, right? Sometimes it is a matter of life and death. And I think that many people attracted to veterinary medicine have what I call the responsibility gene. It's like a DNA that's like, I am responsible for everything. I definitely have it. It's like, oh my gosh, I am, this can't be true, but it feels true. So I think just being aware of that, how it feels internally to feel so responsible and to be kind to ourselves, because I think that responsibility gene is a really beautiful thing. Think about if more people on the planet had it, we'd probably have fewer of some of the really big issues that we have if we felt truly responsible and empathic towards other
Hmm.
creatures and each other. But we do have to have a limit where we're also turning that care back on ourselves and just knowing where that fine line is, that we're not leaning too far to one side or the other, because it's just not
Hmm.
sustainable. Like in the long run, I think so many of these questions are more about what is sustainable long term versus what is the band-aid that works now. Because my whole earlier life was band-aid over and over and over just to get through the day, get through the semester, get through the year, whatever it was, get through the night. Caffeine, right? Push it harder. And that's okay during moments. I definitely think there's seasons of our life, band-aid the hell out of it, right? Get through that period. But for the long run, we really need to think about what's sustainable. And usually it's easier to know by looking at other people. Like if you're raising a child or you're taking care of a best friend or somebody, we're often pretty good at gauging their needs and where to draw a limit. Like, hey, it's time to go to bed, or maybe you should take a break for a second and have a cookie. I think your blood sugar is kind of low because you're getting snarky. We can do that for other people much more easily, but for ourselves, I think that it becomes hard and that we have that kind of, like I said, the slave driver inside that's like, suck it up and get
Hmm.
through it. And that should only be used very occasionally.
Yeah, because I think we all have these like loud inner critic voices that are just yelling at us to do the thing, and we think that's somehow going to motivate us and make us do better. And in the meantime, that's one of the things that's leading us to burnout.
This is such an interesting conversation because I feel like I can see multiple sides of this, right? Like, I wish that I had an easy, like linear answer, but I really don't. So, on the
Hmm.
one side, and I look at some of the top performing humans on the planet, like the military folks that I worked with, just mind blowing in terms of like how critical their job is, what's on the line when they do it. And guess what? In their head, they're yelling at themselves often. It is loud in there with the inner critic. It is pressure. It is responsibility. It is danger. It is not a pleasant place. Sometimes they need to go into that intensity to get the job done. And I think vet med is the exact same way, especially in ER and critical care. You have that
Hmm.
flood of adrenaline. You might be mean with your team for a second, like, get in here, get going, like you're ordering people around. And sometimes that is really, truly needed. And I don't think that right there causes burnout. Um, I think burnout is something that's much more chronic, ongoing, day after day, no relief, not recovering. Multiple pillars of your life are not being addressed over
Hmm.
time. So it's long. I also want to mention that there's been plenty of research. I could actually send you a link that you can add into the show notes if you want on how our perception of stress can affect whether or not we get burned out. So if I was perceiving stress as, oh my gosh, this is so stressful, I'm definitely getting burned out, I just can't handle it, oh, I'm probably going to get sick. If I'm thinking those thoughts, it'll likely happen.
Hmm.
Fortunately for me, I had the opposite mindset, which was like stress. It gives me adrenaline. It makes me strong. It turns me on. I'm going to get through it. It makes me focus. Like stress is like my rocket fuel. That was very much how I lived my earlier days. And I think that's why I was able to do it for so long. Now, again, we need to have a blend there, but
Yeah.
noticing that if we're reacting to stress and saying, if it's temporary, it's turning me on, it's adrenaline, it's focusing me, and I know it's only temporary to get through this patch, then it may not lead to burnout. So I don't want people to like lean too far to one side where they're like, oh, woe is me. This is dangerous. I'm stressed. Something bad is going to happen. Not necessarily. Like stress, just like with like weightlifting, for instance, it can actually help you get stronger if it's used the right way.
Hmm.
Nuanced.
Yeah, no, and I love that you bring that up because I think a lot of people, especially when I'm talking about like nervous system health and, going into that hyperactivated state, they think that the solution is to, well, then just never get triggered and to never go into that fight or flight. And obviously, if that's happening to me, then I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, no, these are normal physiological, biological reactions that are meant to, like you said, help us during those times of like high intensity. Like, yes, a patient's crashing right now, and I've got to turn it on. And at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, then I need to be able to actually take a step back and reset and not live in that moment continually.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that you bring this up because I do think for a lot of people who are in vet med, we sometimes have more of that perfectionist black or white thinking, or,
Mm-hmm.
this is how it has to be, or if I'm not doing it this way, I'm not cut out for it, or this is not right. And it's like, yeah, I wish it were that easy. And
And I want to say for those listening, with what Amy just mentioned on learning how to regulate your nervous system, oh my gosh, if I could go back to middle school and teach every child what a difference, like
yes.
just start now. If you haven't learned it, learn it. Call Amy, get a session. What this is, I think anybody that's in medicine gets this, right? Like we see when the heart rate is too high, when blood pressure is too high, when respiration is too high, and we're like, oh shit, we're worried. We need to get some drugs on board. And then we see when an animal is in a rested state, rest and digest, the pulse is nice and steady, blood pressure is right where you want it to be. They're kind of chilling. That's great. That's the sympathetic versus parasympathetic, gas versus brake. And for me, I was always in sympathetic. If there was not an actual threat going on, I was thinking about a threat and keeping myself up. I was drinking caffeine. I was thinking stressful thoughts. I was like pushing my gas pedal mentally and with chemicals. So when the Nagoski sisters studied burnout, they also talked about how to overcome burnout, it's okay to get stressed. You just need to complete your stress loop and go back down to where you feel restful in the parasympathetic area of your nervous system. So you can get stressed, then recover, get stressed, then recover. You could do that 20 times a day and never get burned out because you're recovering so well. So when we master the art of working with our nervous system, which is something that Amy's really good at, then you feel so much more confident managing stress because you know what your little toolkit is to bring your nervous system back to rest. And oh my gosh, it's just an amazing skill set to have. I'm so glad that you teach that.
Yeah, and just listening to you talk about it, I was like, yeah, it comes back to full circle again.
I
That's
know.
exactly what you're doing. Completing it and getting everybody home.
Yep, it's so true.
Yeah, so some of the things that we've touched on so far, like some of the beliefs about, the responsibility DNA, things like that. Especially like when I'm working with high achievers, one of those beliefs is that everything falls on them or they have to push through, and they're the ones that everybody else relies on. I'm curious in your work with, leadership and development and in performance, do you see some of these similar commonly held beliefs that negatively affect somebody's well-being, whether it be their own or even their team's well-being, or it could even be a personal example, because let's be real, like this isn't just related to work. This is our entire life.
I know. Thank you for saying that too, because I oftentimes when people sign up to work with us in coaching, they'll ask me, so I'll have them fill out a professional leadership development like assessment. And
Hmm.
we go through it, they'll say like, when I meet with my coach or, what should I focus on? I say, you are a whole human, anything goes. So sometimes we have a lot of parents, for instance, maybe they have a new baby. Well, trying to navigate that and then come into work when you've only slept like 2 hours and, your
Uh-huh.
hormones are all a wreck because you're in postpartum and it's just, it's messy. Absolutely, you can talk about how you're going to navigate that, kind of like getting back on your feet, getting stuff established to help you, feel kind of human again. How do you navigate that with your team when you come in? Because they're reading you and they're like, something's off. So I'd say, first of all, yes, be whole person centric. We're not going to separate out and amputate off personal and professional. It doesn't exist. That's a fallacy. You're one human. It's all the same thing. So things that I see commonly that I think kind of sabotage leaders absolutely are, American spirit of the independent. It's all on you. It's just I mean, it's the water that we swim in here in America. It's everywhere. The thing is, though, I'd really love to rebrand leaders as teachers. I think the very
Hmm.
best leaders on the planet are amazing at surrounding themselves with people who know more or are better than they are at certain things. Leaders should be great at figuring out who will be on your bus. If I own a company, the people that I bring on to that team, by far, that's the most critical decision I will ever make. They make or break my business. So, a great leader, I think, first and foremost, knows what the vision is for this hospital or for whatever company they work for. This is what we're trying to achieve, right? Who are the people that I need to have on this bus? Who are the people that are closest, that are, this person's way better than I am at like making really complex schedules for a 24/7 facility with relief doctors and people on maternity leave. And oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. They can do it. this person is amazing at training the tech team, right? Like technical skills have gone through the roof. They can organize that. This medical director, oh my gosh, they have not only the medical skills, but the people skills, right? They can meet with the new
Yeah.
veterinarians, make them feel at home, help get them mentored up. Look for people that should be better than you. And your job as a leader is really helping them shine, getting them the support they need. So it's not about you being able to do everything. That's actually just, that's not the job of a leader, right? That's a worker. A worker
Mm.
should be good at doing what they're assigned to do a task. Great, be very good at your task. If you're a leader, it's way beyond that. So I think that changing our mindset around what a leader truly is. I think about service. I think about lifting others up. I think about holding structures and consistencies. I help make people shine. I think about giving them direct feedback so they can improve, being honest, being transparent. Like there's so many qualities that it goes back to me of like excellent teachers.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's such a cool reframe because, yeah, when you get into a leadership position, suddenly it is that feeling of like, oh shit, the buck stops with me.
Exactly.
Now I'm the one that has to handle it all. And it's like, yeah, kind of, but you're not actually expected to be everywhere all at once. And I love that the analogy of like, hey, come on this bus, man. This is where we're going, and this is how we're gonna make it beautiful.
Yes, and I think that too is like as a leader, the way I would frame it is that you may be the one that is accountable to making sure this thing gets done. Like I need to make sure that the vet schedule and tech schedule and CSR schedule is completed for the next 3 months. But I've delegated that to this other person. So my job is just to oversee and make sure it got done. If they hit a roadblock, help them figure it out. If they need other resources, get them the resources. Need more training, get them the training. But making sure that they are good at doing that. Sometimes, I mean, maybe the SOP that I wrote wasn't clear enough. I need to update that SOP
Hmm.
to make sure the person who's handling this. I also like to think about for leaders, you should absolutely have built the systems around you so that if you needed to leave town for a couple months, the place would run just fine. That means you're doing a
Yes.
great job at your job. You should not be, indispensable. If you're not there, the whole thing falls apart. That to me is very dangerous. So I'd say also as you're developing yourself as a leader, developing those around you to really run without you. That means you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. Leading those and creating new leaders, and it's kind of that ripple effect. And I think that also shares the load and then helps everything function more sustainably and in a more healthy way rather than just one person like slowly crumbling under the weight of it all.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Totally.
totally agree.
Mhm.
For the listeners out there, if you didn't know, I was on Crystal's podcast not too long ago. So I'm going to leave a link for that in the show notes to go listen if you haven't, because that was a fun conversation. And I remember one of the really fun questions that you had asked me was the magic wand question. Like, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything in vet med, what would you change and why? And I was very curious to hear what your answer would be to this question.
Oh my gosh. So I did not prepare anything for this, but I'm gonna shoot from the hip because it's right on top of my mind. So I'm currently in a doctoral program and it's about whole health leadership, which is a concept that's more for human medicine. My goal is to bring whole health to veterinary medicine. So the first anybody's heard of vet med will be right here on your podcast. I'm announcing it.
Yes.
In about a year and a half is when I'll start my capstone project. And I think the vision that I have, the magic wand, I truly want to be able to help all veterinary professionals first really start with their purpose. Like, why are you even here on this planet and in veterinary medicine? And then to build their organizations from that inside out, where you as a whole human, your health, your well being, like why you're here, the family you want to raise, the impact you want to have on the world, all of that is central to everything else you do. Like, how you organize your day, your schedule, what kind of income you want to bring in, the players that are involved on this team, like all of it kind of generates from this deeper sense of purpose and meaning. And I also envision helping the whole like veterinary ecosystem really evolve where I kind of look at it how I look at like restaurants. We have some restaurants that are like corporate restaurants, like the Cheesecake Factory or Ruby Tuesday. When you go there, you know exactly what you're going to get. You can go anywhere in America and find one of them. You know, it's a tried and true machine that runs. corporate medicine, corporate veterinary medicine, great. Like you have these big entities, yay. And then we have the kind of farm to table, the restaurants where the chef, everybody knows the chef, or it's a couple of chefs and they love making food and they curate it and it's like community driven and it's really local and grassroots and they might have a different purpose they serve in the community. And I think making that ecosystem where they can all work together, where we're not trying like pendulum swing one way or the other, where like corporate takes over everything and they're the bad guys, or we're going way back to only independent practices and corporates don't exist anymore. Like I want to find a way for us all to thrive together because I think that they all fill different needs of our growing pet community, but I want us to play better together. And I want the professionals that are boots on the ground doing the job to feel so much more fulfilled by their work. I don't mean for it to be easy because it never will be. This is medicine. Medicine is life and death. It's hard. But I think with the hard should come a real sense of like, this really means something to me. And I leave at the end of the day feeling really damn good about what me and my team have done. That's the thing that I want for all veterinary professionals. And I don't think we're that far from getting there. I think it's more of just starting with more intentionality. Instead of being on this fast track, we basically fall down a hill into vet school and then fall down a hill again into residency and then fall down a hill into our whatever first job with the contract. It's not intentional. We're not awake. We're not asking the right questions. So I think coaching, conversations like this, reading some really great books and slowing ourselves down and bringing that intentionality into teams. That's what we love to do at Full Circle, helping our leaders really figure out why they want to lead and how they want to lead and what kind of organization you want to have. And ultimately it'd be nice if people were banging on the door to be in vet med. It's the best place in the world. Like I want people to feel that way about veterinary medicine again. So that's my very audacious magic fairy wand question answer.
Yes. Ah, I love it. That is so great. And what a way to wrap up here was just like this big, beautiful vision of what it could be, and everybody actually like getting along and creating that community that you were talking about and supporting each other. And I, for one, am super excited to see where this doctoral degree and capstone project go and how you're going to bring that into full circle and into the world. And I guess then my final question is like, where can listeners find you? Where can they go to learn more about your work, to connect with you, to learn more about Full Circle Lab? Because I'm sure there's going to be a ton of interested people today.
Oh, absolutely. So I love to connect. You can probably tell that I can talk vet med all day. So my website's the easiest way to find me. It's just Full Circle Lab, not plural, no S, fullcirclelab.com. We pop right up. On that page, there's a way to schedule an appointment with me. So that's a completely complimentary appointment. If you have stuff you want to talk about in your practice or what you're trying to grow, just book a session anytime. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't check it super often, but a lot of people do connect with me on LinkedIn. Through the website, you'll also find our podcast. So if you're just interested in hearing what other leaders are talking about, there's plenty of interesting content there. So I welcome people, connect in any of those ways. And also sometimes we're at conferences. So if I'm ever at a conference, I announce it on LinkedIn. And so happy to see people in person if we cross paths there too.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I will make sure to put it all in the show notes for us. And Crystal, thank you for being here and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom, and more importantly, sharing your vision about what's possible, because that's what I think is just so truly special about you. And I think why I just connected with you and your work so much. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It's been an honor, and I've had such a good time on this podcast with you today. Thanks for having me on.